Wow. This is a great group. And you guys have known each other for a long time. So I get a sense that I don't even need to ask questions. This conversation is just going to take on a life of its own. Yeah. But to give a little bit of structure, I've organized our program today like a game into 4 quarters. Okay. And we might even have a 2-minute drill at the end. And first quarter, everybody comes out in the Super Bowl. They're a little bit nervous. And so you run some like really easy plays. So let's start with an easy play. And Tim, let's start with you. This is a crazy week for you. So give us a sense of what your week's like and tell us a little bit about, the most interesting thing you're doing this week.
Yeah, well, you guys probably know if you've been to past Super Bowls, this has become like a true week now. Yeah. It used to be, even when I first started about 7.5 years ago, we would get here Wednesday, Thursday, and then, everything kind of started happening on Friday. And now, my God, I got here last weekend. And this is the first year that we've actually had the Pro Bowl the same week as we have the game, the Super Bowl. So we had the Pro Bowl on Tuesday night, and now if you don't know, it's in flag because that's a massive initiative that we'll talk about a little bit later probably. But like having all the players here, because you have your players, the Pro Bowl, usually in a different city, and now they're all here. So it's really cool. I just got from another speaking engagement 20 minutes ago, and I saw like all these players. I had no idea they were going to be there. And it's just, and for me, listen, there's a lot of great things about being the CMO of the NFL, but the most fun, the most rewarding, the most interesting is actually getting to know all the players, right? Really getting to know them deep down and understanding them and partnering with them and doing things that they want to do, right? And helping them be successful off the field, not just on the field. That's been a tremendous opportunity. So my week, to get back to your original question, it sort of like starts relatively slow, and then by the time you hit today, it just goes straight up. Yeah. Right. And then it's like I don't have any time hardly to breathe in between things. So I have to remind myself, as I remind all my teammates, to enjoy themselves, because this is fun. You're in the Super Bowl, and you're working for the NFL. You should be having fun. I know it's hectic. I know you got all this shit you got to do, but like, come on, let's relax and have a little bit of fun.
Now, you can't admit who you're going to cheer for on Sunday, but I bet you can share, like, what was the one player that you were just really excited to meet as just a fan?
Oh, man, Joe Montana. So I'll tell you a really quick short story. So when I grew up in Stockton, California, which is like an hour and a half from here, and, you had the Raiders at that time who were in Oakland, and then you had the 49ers. And, of course, when the 49ers started winning all those Super Bowls, everyone wanted to be a 49ers fan. And, then the Raiders moved anyway. So my idol, as a young guy, was Joe Montana. And my dad, oh my God, my dad was glued to the TV every time Joe was on there. And he would sit there and tell me, hey, there's Joe right there. There's Joe. I'm like, yeah, Dad, I know, I can see him. And so when I met Joe Montana, the first dad that we did together, we did the 100th celebration. He walked over to me and he said, would you warm me up? I'm like, holy shit.
Well, let's talk about what that means. But
yeah. Well, we warmed me. So I'm like, sure. I'm over there playing catch with Joe Montana, and it was one of the actual highlights of my life. Wow. So fun. Yeah.
I have photos of that. He's like a little third grader.
He does. Like it was a great. And somebody tried to get in on the action. I'm like, wait, whoa.
All right, Glenn, here's your easy softball question. You run an iconic agency. You are like the godfather of innovative creative. And here we are in the biggest week of the year for advertising. And we all as fans can remember our favorite Super Bowl ads. So I'm curious, if you think through your memory banks, who do you think in history has really gotten it right and why?
Who's gotten it right?
That was an easy question.
That was not a softball. I'm just going to go with a personal answer because it got it right for me. And I ended up working with this brand for the first 10 years of my career. There was a Nike ad in 1992 on the Super Bowl, which just featured a runner in a kind of a lonely early morning setting in a city, just running through the city, no traffic, no nothing, nobody's awake yet, and projected on the walls were legendary feats of athletes from all sports as this runner just ran by to a really touching, delicate piano track, and I was transfixed. And most Super Bowl ads, have kind of like a comedy tends to be pretty common in the ads, or you talk about some of the famous ones, or Epic, if you think of Apple's 1984. But this one just seems so personal. And I made a decision about my career when I saw that. I made a decision about where I wanted to work and nowhere else when I saw that. I mean, my peers and my teachers told me I was suiciding because I said, I'm only working wherever they made that. I need to learn how to make things like that because that's what I want to do with my life, is make other people feel the way that made me feel. So it's called Heritage. Nike, good job, Nike. Harder to do than it seems. I know people think Nike just wakes up and makes great ads, but it's tough to do. But they got it right.
Tim, is there anything that comes to mind that, like, as you look back on your history and just say, that was a great ad, that moved me?
Well,
Can't say your own, can't say VW.
I can't say my own ads. Yeah, okay.
Not yet.
Those in a sec.
Okay. No, listen, I think that, let me just say thematically, I think that the advertisers who are willing to take a risk in the Super Bowl, to me, are the ones who really always win out. I mean, the most famous ads you can imagine, there's usually some level of risk, if not a lot of risk, that it took in order to do that ad. And the pressure, anybody who knows what it's like to have to develop, and whether you're on the agency or creative side or the client side, to be able to approve an ad on the client side, or to come up with an ad that you really if you think it's worthy enough to be in the Super Bowl, it's very, very challenging, right? It's like, it's scary. And so to take a risk in the Super Bowl is huge, right? And I think that the most fun since I started doing Super Bowl ads, I think my first ones were when I worked at Volkswagen. Like, well, just from starting there, it's like, if you're going to do this, you got to go for it, right? You got to really put yourself out there and take risks and do things that really haven't been done before. Because the worst mistake you can make, and I think unfortunately, a lot of advertisers do make this mistake, is that they try to bottle up something somebody else has done and redo it in their own brand, right? With their own story, but they're trying to copy something that has been done, that's been successful before. And I think the things that we all remember that stick, that hit you in a certain way, there's an element of a risk there, which doesn't mean it's not on strategy or not on brand or any of that stuff. It just means that you don't really know exactly how people are going to take it. You don't know how it's going to go. And so to have that kind of courage to put yourself out there like that, to me, that's what this is all about.
Our first ad together was, I think, applies for all that stuff. Which is my favorite Super Bowl ad ever. If we can talk about our own, that's my personal favorite Super Bowl ad, was the first outing.
The one Glenn's talking about. Have you guys all seen the?
We have it.
Oh, we have it?
We have it?
Oh, I don't know.
100 years.
The 100-year celebration, the ad.
They play it?
Where all the guys are in the ballroom in their tuxedos and the ball falls off the cake.
And they play it so we don't talk about it? It's more fun to watch.
Couple ads. Actually, let's hold this for a second, because this is a good segue. You talk about taking risks. Tim, you walk into the job as CMO of the NFL, and many of us probably think that, the audience is pretty tightly defined. It's a bunch of guys who look like me watching football. But yet, I think you had a more expansive view, and together you've taken some real interesting risks during your time together. I mean, can the two of you just walk us through that? And I think it will culminate in probably showing the ad from last year.
Yeah, well, listen, I think when I got the call from a recruiter asking me if I was interested in working for the NFL, I almost punched him in the face, because I'm like, wait, how come you haven't told me about this before? Like, I was actually talking to another company about going there. I'd been at Activision 7 years, and I just felt like it was time to move on. And I'm like, when I heard that there's a job at the NFL, I'm like, oh my God, how come you didn't tell me about this? So, but the reason I bring it up is because when I talked to the NFL, I knew exactly what they should do. Like, I had the entire strategy, which is actually the same strategy we have today, 7.5 years later. And the biggest thing of that strategy was it's got to be all about the players with their helmets off. So let's just call it the helmets off strategy, and let's make the league much more human, much more vulnerable, much more compassionate. And let's tell all these stories through the players. And in that, you'll get just more people who are interested, and you'll open your arms wider, and you'll bring more people into the NFL. Because you're right, most of the avid, core of the NFL audience is guys like the three of us, right? Unfortunately. I shouldn't say unfortunately, but it is what it is. And so for me, I wanted to get girls and women, I wanted to get young people into the brand, and I wanted to get Latinos into the brand. And so in order to just open up our arms and invite people in, you had to be willing to do things that hadn't been done before, right? So you had to be willing to take a risk. And you had to be willing to upset some people, right? Because they weren't expecting that. They don't like it. Some things people, for example, some fans might consider political. We don't. We think it's just being about being a human being. They might see it as political. So you had to be willing to make some people uncomfortable in order to open the doors for other people. And that is exactly what's happened. We have expanded our audience, and the 3 segments of the growth has been from those 3 segments that we set out to reach. Do you want to add?
Well, amen to that. So that's the best table you could set for a creative partner. You know, that strategy. It's so clear. It's very sharp, but it's wide open for interpretation. And I was just thinking about the Super Bowl work over the last few years while you were saying that. And even the first one. So yes, now you look at it like, of course the NFL does an ad with all its players and, you know, running around a ballroom playing football. But at the time, when we pitched it, we're like, it's got to be a 2-minute thing. I mean, the media choice here has to be part of the disruption. Former players, current players, we want to put Ninja in it, who was the first professional streamer. And we wanted to end with like a woman, because there's a girl who's playing tackle football, and we wanted to honor kind of where the game is going. And that was not well received internally, or even in our building. It was sort of like, well, that would be exciting, but are they going to go for that? And then from there, just a step forward, I remember the conversations around we're going to do an ad about flag football, and it's going to be featuring a female star, and she's from Mexico, not the USA, and she's fucking awesome.
Going to speak Spanish.
I remember we were sitting in front of Roger presenting that. He goes, wait, so it's flag? I was like, oh yeah, sorry, let me back up. Yeah, flag football. He's like, and who's this? Like, incredible person. And then, I remember feeling tempted to keep telling that story. And the next year we didn't. We went to Ghana to talk about the internationalization of the game. And, we were confronted again this year with like, well, what do you do? It's tempting to keep looking back at these successes. And we definitely start like every agency and partner and brand partnership talking about, well, what did work? And I think we even like, well, should we do another thing like that? But this year it's going to be very different again.
And you should mention, so we went to Ghana. Okay, so we went to the busiest market street on the busiest day of the year. So it was the biggest market street in Ghana, okay? And we didn't really have the ability to like shut all the audience. I mean, sorry, all the people working there out. We didn't want to. We wanted to have them as part of the commercial. But we went over there to do that shoot in that street during that day. And we brought like Saquon Barkley and Justin Jefferson. Like we brought some of the biggest stars of the NFL over to Ghana to do that. We had no idea what was going to happen. There were points where we couldn't get from point A to point B to shoot. And we literally had to stop the minibus, and all of us were grabbing equipment and running through the streets of Ghana sprinting to get to the next. I mean, so like that's the kind of stuff which is just, who dares to do that? Like the first ad that Glenn's talking about that we did, we started doing this ad in December. It had 65 players in it, okay? So when I went to the head of football operations, I said, listen, I need some players, because at that time they'd never used more than 2 or 3 players at a time in an ad before. And I said, I need 65 players for this ad. And she said, did you say 6 or 5? Because that's a lot. I said, no, I said 65. It was so audacious. It was so crazy that everyone just got excited about it, right? And we decided, we're gonna do this. And so, like, again, going back to where we started this whole conversation, taking those risks, deciding to do things which are just kind of crazy and audacious, they usually pay off, if you're committed.
And so if we reflect back on last year, one of the most memorable ads was yours, the Somebody ad. And I think that's the creative we have lined up to play, right?
Great. Should we play it?
Let's show it, yeah.
You want to give let's show it first.
All right, ready, guys? You guys gotta be loud, though, okay? Let's go! Okay, repeat after me.
Yes, sir.
I am somebody.
I may be young, but I am somebody.
I may be small, but I am. My clothes are different. My face is different. My hair is different.
But I am
Somebody.
somebody.
I must be respected.
I must be respected.
Protected. Never rejected.
But I am. Somebody. I am. Somebody. I am. Somebody. I am. Somebody. I am.
Somebody.
Thank you.
Glenn, walk us through the creative decision-making and production process for that. How did that ad come to be?
We normally, and this is a privilege and a luxury that we are able to have 2 slots in every Super Bowl. It's a strategic decision Tim and his team, or Tim has made. And generally one of these is in service of the initiatives that the NFL supports, social justice initiatives or other nonprofits. And then we do another one that we would label like more joy of the game, the ad in Ghana, the flag football. So this was one of the former. This was actually under the banner of the Inspire Change campaign. And we always expect it to be hard-hitting and emotional. We try to deliver above what you'd expect from a nonprofit sort of ad. I don't know that any of us expected it to turn out that extraordinarily touching and personal. I think it really transcended like kind of a category of those. In some ways, you could argue it outperformed the other one, which performed very well also. So, but the inspiration for that was a speech that by the Reverend Jesse Jackson had given on an episode of Sesame Street in the 70s, I think, 80s, 70s, in the 70s. And the creative team brought that forward and said, I think we should, I think this message is still resonant today. And we do take pride in trying to identify where the zeitgeist is and putting something out there that really addresses a need maybe in culture and something in a way that the NFL can uniquely deliver. So from that ambition and then that creative spark, it led us to this, sorry, I keep pointing the TVs up there. It pointed us to that execution. And, Tim and his team went and started talking to the players, just started, offering it up to them and they were just jumping over themselves to do it. But the players who are all featured in there do that work. That's work they're doing with those kids in those organizations. And Tim, you should talk about Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Well, yeah, and when we talk about helmets off, I mean, these are foundations, or these are things that these players really feel very deeply about. It's very personal for them. Like I just saw these guys, some of in that ad right there. I just saw them this morning and last night, and they still it's still really meaningful to them. Like they want to be part of telling that story. And it doesn't matter, but they don't ask for any payment or any compensation for that stuff. They want to be a part of it. And so for us, we basically call that is our force for good, right? We said, we believe that the NFL has a huge platform. There's a big responsibility that goes along with that, and that we should and can be a force for good. And our influence is real, and we should take that very seriously, right? And so one of our partners, who I'm also personally on the board of, is Big Brothers Big Sisters. That's right. So you may have noticed in there in the beginning and toward the end there's a lot of Big Brothers Big Sisters kids, authentic kids who are in that. They start at the Super Bowl with that. They started with the Super Bowl with that ad, and then we went all the way into the draft that they called the Big Draft, and they used the draft, the NFL draft, in order to draft bigs. Because believe it or not, there's 30,000 kids that historically have been on the list looking for a mentor, okay? So it's an incredible organization. And of course, we've been feeding all that time. We've been, recruiting bigs, but we haven't been able to take that list down from 30, okay? For the first time in decades, with that work together with the work that we did with Big Brothers Big Sisters into the draft, we went down to 20,000 kids. That's a third of that list, which, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it with meeting these kids and spending time with them and so forth and looking at the data. Like it's literally changing lives in many instances, literally saving lives. And so to have that kind of impact is incredible, right? Because you often hear like, oh, you just show things like that. It's performative and all that. No, the NFL, we donate like $500 million a year on these different causes, the entire NFL family. But having a platform like the Super Bowl, being able to talk to 200 million people is meaningful. You can't say that's nothing. You can't say that that's not important, because it is important, right? And if you create something like 72 and Sunny, our partners who know how to create something big and bold and human and emotional, it reaches people. And let's face it, the country has been very divided for a while, and it's particularly divided right now. And so I think a lot of advertisers, they feel like, okay, nobody wants to hear anything serious. They just want to laugh. They want to get away from all the bullshit that's out there right now. So all they want to do is laugh. So let's do slapstick or let's do whatever. And fine, I have nothing against humor. Humor's great. But like, you can also do things very deeply emotional and connect with people.
Yeah.
Right? Because they also want to feel. They just don't want to laugh. They also want to feel. They want to take away something from what you're doing. So I think, to me, this is a good example of that. It was a huge hit. Bigger, you're right, Glenn, bigger than any of us maybe would have thought. And this year we have another one. I'm sorry, we can't show you. But we have another one, which is, I think, going to be also really, really impactful.
All right, so all of us are probably going to be watching the commercials on Sunday. So can you give us a little bit of a teaser of what we're going to see from the NFL? And I even heard that you have not yet figured out what the final line of the message.
If you're asking me, I've thought about it, but now I'm hearing on stage that we have not, because our client has apparently not approved it this morning. So that's good to know. Check your text before you go on stage with your client. From the guy who was writing lines in the Uber on the way over here. So, yeah.
It ain't done till it's done.
But I actually, I love that. I love that you're bringing that up, because this is an extraordinary family. Our two teams together. It's one team, one dream, truly. And I love that he's pushing back on that at the 11th hour, 59th minute. He's had me push back on him at the 11th hour and 59th minute and indulged exploration. And I will always indulge it, because I do believe that, well, if you put enough pressure on the thing, you get the diamond. So the best work will float to the top. It's not my job to sell him on something that he may or may not disagree with. It's just put something in front of him that he's like, fuck yeah, that's what it should be. So, and actually we had that. We've had it. But apparently somebody told you something and now you think we don't have it. So I'll find out what we got to do. But I did want to say before, because I think we should probably play one of the Super Bowl ads we have this year. But on that somebody ad, and Tim may have had a similar reaction. Inside our company, I am very, very hands-on in the editorial process. I just think there's so much magic. That's the directorial production part of the process is very, very important. But the editorial, there's unsung heroes of the storytelling craft. And I am very unsatisfied from rounds 1 through a lot, historically. It's the first time in my career when I saw the first rough cut that our CDs, Jason LaFleur and Matt Turney, shared with us. And I stared at the screen, and I just stood up and started clapping. I said, I've never done this. As I'm giving a standing ovation for this thing, you guys. I'm not sure I have any notes. I have notes, but I'm like, I might not have any notes. It was that's extraordinary. But I think it's also because sometimes you hit an idea just reveals itself. You don't have to necessarily force it. And that was one of those. I thought you seemed to have a similar reaction when you saw it.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and if I don't have any notes, which is rare, and both of us are like that.
Go with never.
If I don't ever have any comments, I don't make them. Like I don't need to comment. But like that was one of those ones where I think if there was anything, it was just like a little, nothing. So listen, that isn't often. I think the more important thing is the care for the crafting of the ad. So when you talk about editing, one of my favorite things to do of the year is like the two of us with his team, we sit in the editing suite and we go through it and we do the sound and then we do the music and all that stuff. And we do it together and we challenge each other, we debate, we get to the right place, and then we sleep on it and go back and then look at it again together. And like having that kind of love and care for the creative is just very powerful, right? And I think that unfortunately, listen, a CMO's job is very, very difficult, right? It's very complex. But you should not forget that the actual creative, the quality of the message that you're sending is really, really important. So why you would not want to be involved with that, I don't understand that. I know there's a lot of
we have a lot of CMOs who say Tim's in the edit with you, and we're like, well, I brought him in right when I went in.
Yeah, no, I don't know why someone, maybe they're not good at it, I don't know, but I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that, but I think it's very, very important. So like all the data that we gather, all the technology that we unleash, all the things that we do in our social programs and so forth are incredibly important, very sophisticated and complex. But the sort of the heart, the having the hair raise off your arms when you see something, is just, that's what it's all about.
All right, so I'm going to go completely off the playbook.
Great.
Orders, we're just going completely off script. We're running audibles right now. But it's clear you guys have worked together so closely, you can almost finish each other's sentences. Now, earlier, I also heard this story that, Tim, you say that, you evaluate a creative agency not by their best piece of work, but by their worst piece of work. And so I'm curious, what's the story about where you guys really disagreed and dodged a terrible campaign?
Okay, before I get fired, I think it was I think the worst idea on the deck, not the agency's body of work. But I think I did share that with you as you should and he said that on behalf of all your clients. You should just know, creative agency folks. I know everybody's always pointing at, yeah, but they're winning ideas in there. He goes, but it's just human nature to look at a deck and see like if there's a fourth idea and it's not very good. You're like, why would they think to bring that in? And like you lose your credibility. I really appreciate that. So
yeah, because at the end of the day, anything you put in front of a client, I mean, they may be stupid enough to buy it. Right? So like, you have to know that like, you can't just put a campaign out there as an idea and then think that your client won't buy it, because they might buy it. And I just feel like, hey, if you were willing to put that out there, or if you were willing to produce it, or you even did produce it, then, I mean, that says something about how much you care about work and caring about anybody can make a mistake. You might think something's going to be awesome and it didn't turn out that way. I always say that, like, you can never take a bad idea and make it great through execution. You can take a really great idea and screw it up in execution, but you can't you can't take a bad idea and make it good in execution. And I mean, believe me, I've seen that people try to do that. But I feel like it's okay if you think you're going to, execute something well and it doesn't turn out like you thought, but it's not okay to like put something out there if you don't really believe in it. If you don't really think that it's a great idea, then why do you put it out there?
that created a guiding principle in our company, that conversation. That's why I told that story, because it's like one of the many influences he's had in our trajectory that moved us from what I'd probably describe as presentations that moved from you could do presentations, you could do this idea, you could do that idea, you could do that, to you should do. And now presentations tend to be one or two ideas, because either of them is like, hey, these are both, and here's why, and we put rigor into it and not just, throwing spaghetti on the wall.
So it would be easy to look at the ads that you've done together, particularly the ones, the award winners from the Super Bowl, and the societal impact is undeniable. But for those that would ask, what's the business impact and how has it benefited the NFL? How do you think about that, Tim?
Well, listen, this probably won't surprise anybody in the room here. We make money by the number of fans we have who engage, right? So the majority of our revenue is generated from our broadcasts and our streaming partners, right? And that could be NBC or Peacock or, Netflix or whoever our partner is. So therefore, the number of people who actually watch the games and who, engage with our content, basically that's how we make. So there's a very direct, right, relation to what we do in marketing to get people to come in and to grow that audience. And then another fairly sizable segment of our revenue is driven by our corporate and our licensing. So our corporate partnerships and our licensing. And of course, they care about the makeup of our fan base. So they don't want just guys who look like us, right? They want people who reflect their own businesses and also, of course, reflect the country, right? So I work very hard to make sure that these segments, and we look at that very carefully, right? And that's, in essence, that's how we end up earning the majority of our revenue. And besides that, there are certain constituents and partners that are very, very important to the NFL. So when I came in before Glenn joined me at the NFL, it was a very, very difficult time. It was right after Colin Kaepernick and Kenny Stills and so many of the guys who were Eric Reed were really talking about important things, and the NFL had made some mistakes, right? And so, and they really had there was a lot of tension amongst the players in the league, and there was a lot of tension amongst a lot of the the former ambassadors, like from the music industry and from some of the other entertainment segments. And so us sort of shifting the way that we behaved as well as the way that we showed up was very, very important. And I say all that because it was exponential. When we started earning the respect and the trust and the partnership of all of these folks who were so powerful within the entertainment industry and within the music industry, it changed the trajectory of the NFL, and it also increased the sort of the perceptions and the positivity around the NFL, and people wanted to engage with us again. And that was a very, very important time. And it took, I think, for the entire company, it took a lot of courage to sort of say, yeah, we've made mistakes. We're not gonna continue that direction. We can't change what has happened, but we can change how we go forward. And so that to me was then now full circle back to the business, right? That was a huge step.
Build on that for a sec. Yeah. Well, just as for those who may be on the partner side of the relationships with your brands, we also try to, of course, we need to honor the business outcomes. I do say when anyone, I mean, I think we've done a good job making it a brand that is in service to its constituents, with the athletes being the first of them. But when we have a creative review, it's very common in an ad agency for people to be like, I got to come up with some creative and I got to convince people to think something about something. And so generally when a new person comes onto our team and is tasked with an NFL brief, I do see that they try to convince people about the NFL. So that's the first thing we don't do. I mean, we do get to the goal. The goal is to improve the business, but our product is the game of football. And if we can just inspire you with to love it, anything about it, which is why we're trying to touch all these different points and all these different people, we trust that it will have a knock-on effect on the NFL core business, engagement, new fans, and so forth. So far, 8 years into the experiment.
That's an incredibly good point, because people feel it. If you're not authentic, if you're bullshitting people, they feel it.
Selling them.
Right? Or trying to sell them. They really feel it. So, I mean, everyone throws the word authenticity around a lot, but man, to get that right makes a huge difference.
All right, we just got the 5-minute signal. So we're in the end game now. And so I'm going to ask one last question, but it's going to have a different flavor for each of you. So here we are, it's Super Bowl 60. 10 years from now, let's say it's Super Bowl 70 and it's back here in San Francisco again. How will the NFL have changed from what it is today? And Tim, I'm going to ask you that one. And I imagine that there's demographics, maybe there's international, maybe you'll talk about flag football in the Olympics. I mean, there's all kinds of places you can take this. So give us a sense for where you're going, how you're building the team for that. And then Glenn, my question for you is, from an agency perspective, I mean, you sit right there at the intersection of creative and data, and AI has an impact on your business, and certainly its impact in the markets this week. Give us a sense for how your world will have changed over the next 10 years.
I talked about the importance of opening your arms wider when we first kind of opened up, and, bringing more people into the NFL, because I think, it makes the NFL more interesting. It makes us more approachable, right? And I think that getting up on the biggest stage that we have of the year and doing an ad with a Latina about flag football was a huge, speaking Spanish in the ad, was a huge step forward, but it was representative of where we wanted to go, right? Doing an ad that was directly celebrating the first player to come out as gay was really a big deal, right? It was a way to sort of say, no, we're inviting more people into the NFL because you're making us more interesting. You're making us better, right? Like, yes, it's not that we want anyone to leave. We just want to make it more diverse and more inclusive and more interesting. And so culturally, one of the sort of great challenges we have right now in the NFL, we're really, you may have seen in some of the headlines, we're really trying to go more international, right? It's not easy. Very, very difficult. If people don't grow up with your sport, it's very, very difficult to get them to suddenly like you and want to hang out with you and wear your jersey and, stay up at night and watch your games and things like that. It's very, very difficult. But you can imagine in 10 years, if we can think about what we've done in the U.S. by making the NFL just more interesting, right? It's not the same old stodgy conservative NFL that maybe you grew up with. And by what we've achieved in just the last years, if you imagine what we could achieve in 10 years from now by the sort of like by globally, by having all this multicultural influence and impact and make that part of who we are as the NFL, oh my God, it could be incredible, right? And I think, so to me, that's what gets really exciting. And for whatever reasons, the country seems to be pushing people out. I want to bring people in, right?
Yeah, woo! Amen.
That's a mic drop moment.
I know. I should never follow him at the end. So I'll have to ask him one more question before we're done. I got very excited about the image of what 10 years from now, what we could see. I won't go into the long answer. I do believe there could be and should be and will be. I'm just going to put it out there in the universe. Say the words. Words matter. There will be a Super Bowl for flag. It might be part of this Super Bowl. Maybe the women's game. I think that's going to happen. Let's make it happen. Let's make that happen. There's enough energy around it. It's legit. I think that's very realistic. So, and that's probably a realistic timeline given the crazy hockey stick that is the growth of it. In terms of your question about all the change, the disruption, and how it might impact what we do together, I'm very optimistic about it. This might be a little on brand for me, but I believe that all these tools they do nothing but help. If you're a really creative person, Tim is an incredibly creative human being. By the way, he has a CMO title, but he's as creative as anybody in my creative partnerships in my life. That's where the real value is going to be. And creative people, by nature, are the most curious people. You want to learn, and you can't stop learning. And that's why in our world, he's still pushing on taglines while we're on stage, because he's trying to find out if there's something better and curious, and the right thing will emerge. And so all these tools and what I'm seeing in our company now, and I project forward, they're just making us smarter, or they're making the curious people smarter and higher performers. I think it's actually removing the ceiling for a lot of those people. The people resisting it, I think, are going to struggle. But you can't fear it. So embracing it and finding the opportunity, I think, is the gig. And that's kind of I think a nutshell for our relationship.
I couldn't agree more. I love that answer. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
You going to tell us how the ad's going to end?
We'll play that. We do have one of them. We have one of them, I think, if you want to play it, roll out on an ad.
Are you guys ready to sing?
Yeah!
You are my friend, you are special. You are my friend. You're special to me.
You are the only one like you, my friend. I like you.
In the daytime,
in the nighttime,
anytime that you feel the right time.
for friendship with me. You see,
Can you spell friend?
F-R-I-E-N-D, special. You are my friend. You're special to me. There's only one in this wonderful world.
you are special.
That's our Inspire Change ad. That's not the other one, but I think you'll see there's sort of a triptych here, a third act following somebody, and then that in the big one that will be revealed right before Bad Bunny takes the stage. It's the last spot before the halftime show. So,
All right.
Let's get it.
We'll all have to tune in. Tim, Glenn, this was awesome. What a treat for everyone here. Thank you.
thank you, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.